Welcome back to another video. Tonight we are going to be discussing the 105 different races throughout the state of Connecticut where there was no Republican challenging a Democrat for a potential seat in government. This is a huge failure of Ben Proto and his GOP cronies where they basically just pack it up and say we're not going to win, so why bother putting anybody out there? Well, that's just not the case. I went through the numbers and I'm going to show you the numbers in a second here, but I want people to understand that there's no reason to not have hope as a Republican in Connecticut. We might have had a lot of Democrats get elected over the last probably 30 or so years, but there's still a large portion of the registered voters that are unaffiliated to the point that it is the biggest party affiliation in the state of Connecticut. I think people are confused because they see that there's more Democrats registered than the Republicans, so they just automatically assume, well, we're not going to win. Well, once upon a time, people used to vote for moderates in this state, and it's not difficult to get independents to vote for you as a Republican. You just have to make yourself very likable and not sound like you are trying to, I guess, change the world and blow everything up, right? That's like, we don't want these war hawks in. And I know a lot of people are very MAGA right now, which is completely fine, but we can't have every single person be MAGA when we just want to balance our government. That probably is going to piss a lot of you off. And quite frankly, I don't care because I am more worried about beating the Democrats and flipping Connecticut from blue to red, not only on the local level, but also on the national level. That I really don't care who's running as long as it's somebody that is going to vote with the rest of the Republicans. Sure, MAGA can have their influence, but we still need their influence to translate over other conservatives to eventually beat the Democrats when it comes to certain policy. So now's not the time to scream you want a MAGA person running in all these seats because there are a lot of unaffiliated voters who are afraid of MAGA. And what would you rather have? People afraid to vote for you because you're a Republican that's running on a MAGA ticket, or people that would vote for you because you are sensible as a conservative and it speaks to what they're looking for because they could potentially be a one or two issue voter, as most unaffiliated people are. So, with that being said, 105 unopposed races. Now, people might think, well, that's because of these Democrats everywhere. And what I did was I went through to check, is it because there's more Democrats in these areas? And that's why Ben Proto and his GOP cronies just gave up. Well, it's interesting because that's not at all what I found out. I actually found out quite the opposite. So I'm going to show you exactly what I found for the 105 district races that we have nobody running against, and maybe you will want to run against them. Because I know people might be afraid and they might say, it's hard to raise money, it's hard to run a campaign. Well, it's not about necessarily winning, it's about creating that hope, letting that presence be known that the Republicans are back better than ever, and that we are willing to contest and fight for the people in these districts and the people of Connecticut to show them how great our state can get back to if we start to balance the politics in Hartford or potentially swing it so far that the Republicans end up with a majority where they can accomplish what they need to accomplish. So let's get right into it. What I've done is I've compiled every town in Connecticut, all 169 of them. I've gone through and looked at the active voters as a total population, and then broken it down, as you can see here, Democrat, unaffiliated or minority. Actually, this is just unaffiliated because minority is right next to it. And then I have the total population of each town as well. And then you can see here what percentage of each town is a Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated, or minority, and then how much of the population are voters. Okay, so for Andover here, 73 and a third percent of the population are registered voters. Now, this number is a little skewed because I'm not including inactive voters. So this is ignoring inactive voters across the board. And this is also based off of the 2022 elections. And that's because I don't want to pay $300 to get the full 2.2 million person voter roll from the Secretary of State, because I don't know how long it's going to take, and I don't know if the information that I actually need is going to be in there. So what I did was I looked at the district sizes for the Congressional and Senate, and I cross-referenced it with the town, and I used a weighted average based off of these numbers you see here for each town to get the total number of voters within that district, in terms of not only what party they're on, but where they're most likely going to vote. So that's fairly easy. The population districts are essentially 100,000 for senatorial races, and then just under 24,000 for the congressional races. So I've also, and I will be releasing this so people can have it for themselves. I have also included the towns in the districts, as you can see, because I needed to cross-reference if, say, Darien has a larger population than Stamford. Well, I would need to know where the lines are to have a full picture of the population within each district that falls from one town to the other. So rather than that, I just estimated as best I could with the given information that is publicly available. So I have the districts here. These first couple are obviously for the senatorial based off of the population. And then as we go down, it is going to be congressional right here. And then these last couple where the numbers are kind of odd, it's actually probate. So what I did was I wanted to look at areas where there is an estimated majority voters of Democrats versus an estimated majority voters that are unaffiliated. And I've highlighted them here so you can see, and I've totaled this down here. 5 Democrat majority and 6 Democrat unaffiliated majority. In the congressional, we have 35 districts that are Democrat majority, and then 22 that are unaffiliated majority. And then here you can see probate is 6 for the Democrats and 31 for unaffiliated. And what's funny about the probate is that there are 8 different races that have no candidate from either the Republican or the Democrats. So those would be really easy for a Republican to win. If it stays that way, all they have to do is put their name on the list. There's also one probate race where it's just an independent and not a Republican or a Democrat. We can win a lot of races if we put our effort into putting the correct resources forward, advertising the correct way, and going to the correct areas within these districts to swing as many unaffiliated voters as possible, as well as potentially taking some Democrats and moving them over to the right just for the sake of the local election. So what I've also done is compile the non-Dem voter advantage. What it is the unaffiliated are going to be in this light orange, and the Democrats are going to be in the light blue. This would be the Democrat advantage. What I wanted to do is I wanted to show the difference in votes between what the majority and the minority is in these towns. They actually beat the estimated Democrats by 324 votes. Now, this is in Hartford and Wethersfield, right? So you might say, well, that means we would have to have 100% of everybody that's not Democrat show up and vote Republican. Well, yeah, but you also have to understand that there's an average turnout in these areas as well. And the average turnout is going to show you that you don't actually need that many people. And people are like, well, but Hartford is notoriously blue. And I've got numbers on other spreadsheets that show that Republicans do get votes in Hartford. So you could potentially close the gap on the Democrats. And in some places, that's all that really matters. It's just closing that gap, because that's giving the people the hope that one day the Democrats will finally do what's right, and if they don't, then they will just eventually vote a Republican in office, because these local elections are all about branding for the party. And people are like, well, what does that mean? Quite honestly, it means putting the brand of republicanism out to the masses, showing people what we stand for, why we are different, and how we will change. And it makes people think. It makes lifelong Democrats think. It makes lifelong independents think. It makes people think about what is best for them in that town now. What could be good today was not good 20, 30 years ago. And if they don't have the option and they don't have the person that they can go to and talk to about this, well, then the Republicans aren't going to win. But if you show up as a candidate and you are that person that these people relate to and want to talk to and find that you might be the best fit, you could see that Republicanism around the state would eventually start to grow at a mass rate, because there's actual people there that can talk to people and push the agenda of what the Republicans want. So what I did was I went through and I calculated the amount of districts or races where there is a higher Dem majority than there is the non-Dem majority. And you can see it's 78 races, 78 districts that are a higher non-Democrat voter than the 27 Democrat voter majority. So that's 78 potential races that if the Republicans put somebody out that is a strong enough person where they put their resources into them, and that person has a solid strategy and really knows their area and can flip those people around because they know what people think, well, then you're going to start to see Republicans win some of these races. That's a substantial amount between senators, congressional, and probate races that the Republicans could win. Not only that, but as you can see, some of these areas where the Dems are majority, it's not by a lot. They're only up by 750 in the Hamden Bethany district. They're only up by 3 in the Bloomfield East Hartford Windsor district, right? So there are some of these that are within 1,000 that you could see potentially going to the right if you have the right candidate out there. And people in the GOP, particularly Ben Proto, can say, "Whoa, we're never going to win those races." And the fact of the matter is, he's wrong, because Ryan Fazio won as a Republican in an area that Kamala Harris won by 17 points. Okay, so that shows that there are people, if you get the right person into these areas, there are people that are willing to vote for a Republican if it's a Republican that they agree with, that is gonna be a little bit more moderate than the MAGA. And really, at the state level, I'm not worried about MAGA on a state level as I am about MAGA as a federal level at this point, right? So Trump's only going to be around for so long. And back in 1990, a Connecticut party was started by a Republican as a direct competitor to the Democrats and Republicans. And we actually had a Connecticut party governor before Rowland. And that party was actually pretty significant. And I have the data on that to show you. And the point of why it was named that was because it allowed that party to be put alphabetically above the other minority parties. So Republican and Democrat aren't put on there alphabetically, but the other parties are. So the Connecticut Party, or a Connecticut Party, was the third option on the ballot. And I went over this in a previous video, but you can see right here. He is a representative of the Connecticut Party in 1994 for governor, and you can see how many votes they got. So that shows you, like, considering that most of these people were Republicans, you add this on top of the Republican total back in 1994, and the Republicans were actually, they showed up, and most of the people that were unaffiliated were in fact voting for the Republicans. Now that party disbanded in 1998, but I'm just saying that if you don't want to consider yourself a Republican because you're afraid that Republicans aren't going to get voted for, well then reinstate a party like a Connecticut Party and run as a Connecticut Party person, because it is a conservative party, but people nowadays don't realize what it is. So they might not like a Democrat and they might not like a Republican, but if they see that third option, they're going to vote for that third option. So if you're not going to have a Republican on the candidacy and you're going to have a Democrat, then run under that third option, and it'll be no Republican, but a Democrat and this person. Or you could, which I don't necessarily recommend, because people might think that if they vote for you that it's a lost vote. But I think in the areas where there's a lot more unaffiliated people, they're willing to vote for the third candidate more so than the Republican or the Democrat if they don't like them. So if it's an area where the Democrat is not all that well liked, then by all means run as a conservative or as that third party. Or in areas where the Democrats are well liked, run the ticket as both a Connecticut Party and a Republican. And that way you can steal those votes from the people that don't want to vote for a Republican or a Democrat. And they will just not realize that they're actually voting for you as a Republican, because they might not even look to see who's running for those two and just immediately go to the third line for candidacies. And believe it or not, there are people that vote that way. So I believe there are a couple people that have shown interest in running. And realistically, we've got a very good shot. I mean, 6 different districts in the Senate alone could go to Republicans. That would be huge for getting us back to that 18 Republican senatorial ownership. Just like with Congress, with the amount of races in Congress that are available, there's 57. Even if we get the 22 here, it's fine. But remember, there could be some of these that are higher with the full unaffiliated, or just, I should say, just non-Dem majority voters, could end up being higher to reduce this congressional number by quite a bit and increase this number. So you can do this math yourself. Again, I'm going to make this spreadsheet available, and I believe that Selena Rifkin is going to be putting a list of names in the comments of this video. So I'll end it with this. We have hope. We just need candidates. You get candidates with the hope, you have belief. Belief is the strongest thing Republicans can have going into this election. The more confident our candidates are, the more confident our voters are, the more likely we will succeed come November. So stop letting Proto and the GOP tell us not to run in certain races, and stop thinking that because you're not getting their support, it means you can't win. The rest of us out here on the grassroots side will do everything it takes to help you out. We are raising money day by day. We are not letting people go to the GOP for their funds anymore because we know that Proto is not handing them out to the people that he needs to hand it out to. So rather than that, we are making sure that the money is going directly into the campaigns of every Republican that's running, just to avoid the GOP nonsense. We need to make sure that these candidates can spend their money as they see fit and not have to worry about when the check is coming from Ben Proto. Because most people will tell you Ben Proto cares more about the lobster and champagne dinners than he does about winning a goddamn race in the state of Connecticut. So, thank you, and God bless Connecticut.